Thanks again for being here and for taking the time and for doing this.
Sure, of course. Thanks for asking.
It's a pleasure. Can you remember why you wanted to learn how to play the guitar? What fascinated you about this instrument?
I think the first thing about it was just hearing it on records. I heard a guitar before I knew what it really looked like. I grew up. I was born in the mid '60s, so when I was 10, let's say that's 1976. Songs on the radio. There were still lots of guitar. One summer, I went to not guitar camp, just summer camp when I was maybe 11, and then that's when I saw a guitar for the first time.
Okay.
And I tried to play it, and I had already played some piano and didn't really get the hang of it. And I had played some clarinet in school, and it just didn't come naturally at all.
Yeah.
And somehow the guitar, like somebody showed me one chord, and then play another chord, like it, and then I would play a chord, and I would think, oh wait, that's that chord in that song that I love. Like I could recognize. So as soon as I connected, like this shape reminds me of this feeling that I had when I listened to this song. That was probably the moment. So I'm probably 11 or something like that.
What do you do to keep that joy up, to still find that years, 10 and 20 years later in your instrument?
40 years later, it's hard, it's hard. One thing that helps me is going out to hear other people and just seeing how somebody else might approach it so differently. That's probably the number one thing now, even more than records. I still buy records and I still get excited about stuff on records, but the physicality of it, just seeing somebody like make a move on the guitar what's that?
How was it to change cities and to start probably from scratch in a new city?
The first place I moved to when I left it, so LA is my hometown. I grew up here. I lived here until I was 23. When I moved to San Francisco, I didn't really have a plan of how I was going to meet people. I knew the first thing was I just needed to get some kind of job so that I could, be stable, right? And so I was just working at a newspaper doing advertising, but I would go out to jam sessions because I thought, okay, well, that's where the people I want to meet are going to be, in jazz anyway. Mm-hmm. So I just would look through the paper, where are the jam sessions, and I would go. When I moved to New York, I tried the same thing, and it was a lot harder because when you go to jazz jam sessions in New York, just everybody's really good and really serious, and probably in whatever town they're from, they are by far like the best musician in their town, and they come to New York, and you go to these jam sessions, and it was more intimidating than encouraging. So the other thing I started to do, because that wasn't very fruitful, was just I would ask people if they would be willing to get together and play. Any phone number that I could get my hands on. I remember I called Ben Monder. Do you know Ben Monder? No. Great guitar player in New York City. I called Jerome Harris, who was involved with Sonny Rollins for a long time. I don't even remember how, one phone number would lead to another, but I was kind of either dumb enough or nice enough or what. People were just very nice to me. I would call them and just say, hey, I moved to New York. I think about what that must have sounded like to somebody else, because like people move to New York every day. And you're like, oh, great, another guitar player moved to New York.
Why are you creative? Why do you create music? Or what motivates you to do so?
I don't know if I have a good answer. It feels like a very natural human impulse to me. For whatever reason, my impulse when I see somebody do something or hear something on a record that's exciting to me it doesn't make me want to practice. I mean, when I was younger, that's what it was. It was like, I have to be able to do that thing. So it would kind of push me to practice. And now it's more like, it's going to push me to write a song.
Does it happen that you have the feeling of being stuck, or that you ran out of ideas?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. And the only reason that it doesn't freak me out is that it happens all the time, and something always comes along to prove it wrong. Yeah. So that's really the thing that comforts me is that it's like, oh yeah, I know that one. That's not a serious problem. It's just kind of a wave or a pendulum swing.
Yeah, you probably already answered the question, but what helps you to get out of that?
Well, yeah, like I said, either checking out what other people are doing in music or just in some other thing that could be any sense, sound, sight, taste, smell. Anything could be like, oh, that's interesting. I had a really interesting conversation with, do you know who Jim Campolongo is? He's an incredible guitar player, originally from San Francisco. He lives in New York now. And he said sometimes, like, when he feels that way, it's like, well, all I can really do right now is like enjoy what I already know. So sometimes when I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know where the next idea is going to come from, I might go back and go like, well, I did make some good stuff. It's pretty good. I think I don't want to spend a lot of time there. I mean, I think that can become its own kind of weird loop. But just kind of take stock. Like, okay, I've done some stuff, and I didn't know how I was going to do that stuff, but I did it.
The next question would be that as an artist, you are working between serving the market on one hand and following your own preferences on the other hand. Do you feel that there's a tension sometimes between those two requirements?
Yes and no. As I lead kind of a double life in that I am a creative artist and I also work for other people sometimes. As a worker guitar player, I do feel kind of the marketplace more than I do when I'm creating. I mean, for better or worse, I don't think about the market very much. I just create the stuff that I'm excited about. Like I heard somebody say last night, like, I don't like to use the word network as a verb. I have a network, but I don't want to network. Yeah.
What would you say helped you most probably to become the musician that you are now?
There's a certain kind of youthful confidence where you believe in yourself for no good reason. Like you don't have anything to show, you haven't created anything, you haven't done anything, but you just believe like, I'm gonna go achieve this thing. And I had just enough of that when I was young to kind of, like there was enough fuel in that, if you think about like a rocket in stages, like, you have to get this far and then that jettisons and you have to get this far and this. I guess there was enough fuel in that initial rocket to kind of get me going, despite not really being that great. I just believed in myself, and that's helpful. I think, especially when you're young, well, you always need some amount of that, and so that's been helpful. And then when I was younger, kind of the thing that helped me the most was being around older musicians, older guys who would just give me a little bit of like, maybe show up early, Maybe, don't wear white socks with a black suit. Maybe play the melody instead of, like, this is in the jazz, but like, I wanted to play more kind of all over the place. And they're like, yeah, it's, people are dancing. You can really just play melody and it's enough. So those kind of things helped me when I was younger. And then now that I'm kind of mid-lifey or whatever, I think being around younger musicians has been helpful because they have a ton of energy and they have baggage. I guess we all have baggage, but if you only are surrounded by your peers all the time, you wind up having kind of similar ups and downs and similar baggage, and also it's just similar influences. Like a lot of guitar players my age have somewhat similar record collections, especially if they're interested in jazz.
You were mentioning in the last question the confidence you had when you moved to New York, and that kind of helped you to get in touch with the people there. Why did you have this confidence? Did you have to get that from somewhere? Did you already have it? How did you build it?
I think I just had it. I was very lucky. To be honest, it's much more fleeting now. Like, I have many more days of self-doubt now than I had in my 20s or early 30s.
You already mentioned one crucial experience that you had when you first got your guitar. Do you remember another crucial experience in your development as an artist?
Yeah. Taking on songwriting. I was not interested in songwriting or singing at all until I was in my mid or late 30s. I don't remember exactly, but I was touring with Nora Jones. I was playing guitar in her band, and even though everybody in the band had kind of a jazz background, they were getting into songwriting. So I started writing, and it was a real, like, rebirth for me musically, because suddenly there were all these new muscles that I didn't know how to work. Like, all of that stuff was a very big aha moment. It kind of freaked me out. I wrote some songs, and then when I was working with Nora, she wound up recording one of my songs, and I kind of was like, oh, in my mind, like, it's too soon. I'm not ready to, like, I'm just starting. And so I stopped for a little bit, and then I started again. And then I got really into different tunings on the guitar, which I'd never done before. And I got into using the capo in a different way. And all of a sudden, the guitar seemed wide open again. I had done so much work to, like, figure it out in jazz, and all of a sudden I didn't know anything, and it was really exciting.
I kind of move over to kind of probably a sound question, because that's what I'm interested in as a drummer. How do I find the right drum sound, in my case, for a song? How do I get there? What works well in the song, and what does the song need? How do you do that as a guitar player?
Well, one thing is to listen to a lot of stuff, listen to a lot of records, and not always in the, like, oh, I want to play Americana music, so I'm going to listen to a lot of Americana. It's almost more like listening to almost anything else and just hearing, oh, that's a really different way to play the guitar, or that's a really different sound. I guess one thing is that, the big thing is the sound, and the concept has not as much to do with the physical stuff as we probably think. Like, so much of it is just in the mind of the person doing the playing. But I don't know. If you ask me this in a different time, I might say something different. But when I was young, there was this idea that to be a studio musician, you had to know every style. You had to understand rock and country and blues and folk and jazz, and because if you got called to do a session that was one of those things, you needed to be able to just, right then, like, oh, it's jazz. I'll grab this guitar and I'll play this kind of stuff on it, and there it is. It sounds like jazz. Almost like you're just turning like to presets or something, like you see like on car radio sometimes, like, oh yeah, that jazz EQ setting or whatever. And I guess if you're just interested in working, that might be useful. But if you're trying to be Tamir Barzilay or Jay Bellerose or something like that, it has to be way, way beyond that, to where you're listening to records that are really different from whatever the work is. And you're just inspired by different things. So then you can bring something to a session or a gig that it's not that it comes from nowhere. It's still inspired by something, but it's just not the thing that you might expect. Yeah. And a certain amount of that hubris that I talked about in that first rocket stage, I think you have to hold on to that and be willing to make a sound that is very possibly wrong for the thing. I don't know, none of the musicians that we love is average. Not one of them. You can't even name an average musician because they'll go in one ear and out the other. The only people that you can even, if I just say, let's go back and forth and name musicians, we could do this for an hour and none of those people are going to be average. And I think that's the other answer to your question, is like, part of it is trusting yourself enough to do something that's a little unexpected or personal, because it's vulnerable when you're like, hey, I think it needs to sound like this. That could read as, I'm smarter than you, I know the best thing, I'm going to play with it. This is what the song needs. It could read that way, or it could be like, hey, I don't know what the song needs, but this is something I believe in, and I'm going to contribute the thing that feels most real to me. So here's what I can do. So that's part of it, and then part of it is just paying attention. And this doesn't mean playing the right thing, but there's music happening. There's music happening, and if all you're worried about is like, yourself or something, like
doing it right.
Yeah, then you're not going to get to the music. The music's going to be over here, and you're going to be over here, and it's never going to get together. We recorded it at a studio in Los Angeles. It's called Lucy's Meat Market.
Pete Min.
Yeah, Pete Min's place. And we had originally had a thought to do it as a trio record with Larry Goldings on organ. And then something happened, Larry couldn't do it, and Jay said, well, let's just do it anyway. And I didn't know what that would be like, because an organ is a lot of stuff. Like, it's a big sound. If you take that away, I just couldn't quite imagine what it would sound like. So Jay lent me some records. There was a guy named Sandy Bull in the 60s who made some records with Billy Higgins, just guitar and drums. There's a guy named Josh White, who was a folk singer, who recorded a little bit with Sonny Greer, who was an early drummer with Ellington. So it gave me some ideas of like, okay, and J.B. Lenoir, like recording with Fred Bellin. So okay, there's a thing that's possible. And then, so I wrote these songs, and we set up pretty close together. You know, Pete Min's place, there's not exactly isolation. I mean, you can isolate things to some extent, but I wanted to be in the room with Jay. We didn't use headphones, which I think is a really important part of making records. I understand headphones are necessary evil, but they're evil. If you're like somebody like me who spends most of his time playing music not in the studio. I guess if that's your whole world, you know, if you're Matt Chamberlain or something, like headphones are probably like, oh yeah, whatever. Sure. But I'm on stage more than I'm in the studio, so I don't like it. So very close together, no headphones. Just trying to get honest takes and not do edits or fixes. And that's what we did. So we had 5 songs, and I think we did it all in one day, maybe a day and a half. And then Pete did some interesting things with the mix, because like, okay, well, there's only this much stuff going on. Sometimes he would maybe like in the mixing, like send the sound back out into the room through speakers and then record the room for just a part of the song. So there's this kind of like a scene change. Or he would open up mics or he'd close mics or open mics just for certain sections so that you get this sense of, oh, here's an intimate shot, you know, here's a long distance shot. I didn't want it to just be like we set up in a club and here's 3 mics and that's it. I did want there to be some change in perspective, and Pete was able to do that. And I don't, you know, I never would tell Jay what to play. You know, he's always curious. You know, if you hear something, he wants to know about it. But he's very good about like just doing the thing we were talking about a minute ago. Just like, all right, I'm going to play something, and you know, if the artist or the producer doesn't like it, then they can push back. But he's not afraid to just kind of like say, this is what I hear. And I think drummers have to do that more than anybody except maybe singers. Like if you're a singer, you can't mumble. Like you have to sing the song. And the same with drums. You can't mumble on the drums. Like the drums have to speak.
Thank you so much.
Sure, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.